Coming up, Dear Photograph founder Taylor Jones joins us. We're going to talk about blogging, nostalgia, and even book deals. eBay's buying Hunch. Google Plus's trending topics are sort of hidden. And is the Twitter activity tab awesome or just a nuisance? All that and a teeny tiny little review on the Social Hour.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is The Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 35, recorded Monday, November 21st, 2011. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Ford, featuring available sync with My Ford Touch. Sync with My Ford Touch gets you to your destination with integrated turn-by-turn directions and directional arrows displayed on screen. Check it out in the new 2012 Ford Focus and at Ford.com/technology. And by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/social hour. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Social Hour. We're on episode 35, in fact, at TWiT World Headquarters in Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I can't believe we're at 35. So I was watching some of the shows on YouTube, and we've come a long way. The show is coming together quite nicely, and it's still very young.
It's true. In fact, we'll get to it a little bit later in the show, but we had someone ask us about going back and reviewing some of our Rad or Fad picks from episodes of yore, like what about one of the Rad or Fads that you guys thought was a fad? Is it still a fad? Maybe it became something successful. And I had to go back and, we didn't actually even have Rad or Fad until about the fourth episode in.
Oh,
I had forgotten that. Yeah, it was something that we sort of came up with as we moved along. And that's kind of the fun thing about going back in shows is like sometimes there's an evolution that you didn't even really notice. It's just that.
Yeah, it's a good point, too. And I know that video is coming up later on in the show
yes.
where one of our viewers is going to chat with us about our tiny little shortcoming, perhaps.
That's right, exactly. But first, we actually have something really interesting, and I'm so excited about our guest because I have been following his Tumblr or Tumblr blog, however you want to call it, I think since... damn near after its inception, dearphotograph.com. If you're not familiar with it, you're about to. Taylor Jones, the founder of Dear Photograph, joins us now. Hello, Taylor, and welcome.
Thank you, guys. How's it going?
Very
Pretty
well.
good. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Sarah, just so you know, a little background, I was speaking at a conference, and actually I wasn't speaking there. Maybe I was just attending the conference, which was a weird thing. And Taylor was speaking there. He did a fantastic job and talked about the history of Dear Photograph. And I knew you were a fan and turned me into a fan. So Taylor's so happy that you could join us. And maybe you could tell people a little bit about the site and how you came up with the idea to start this blog.
Yeah, so how it all started, I was actually in the room just like next door. Right here. And we're sitting at our kitchen table, and I came across, I'll even show you the original photograph. I came across this photo in that album right there. And I was sitting in the spot where my mom took the photo, and then my brother was actually sitting in the spot where he actually was in the photo. And so when I came across it, I kind of held it up and put it in place, and then held up in front of where it actually was, and grabbed my camera right away and just went and took a picture of it. And there was a few more from around the house. So like this one of me in my Sharks jersey, which I wish would have been a Maple Leafs jersey because I'm a huge Leafs fan. And then another one here of me outside of my house. So what it is, you just hold it up in front of where it was exactly like in the past, and you take a picture of it. So I did that about 7 times. And I posted it online to just a random blog. I didn't have a name for it yet. And when you upload a photo to Tumblr, what you write it gives you the option to give a caption. So I thought, how could I talk to the photo? And I thought, okay, people write letters. They write Dear whoever. So in this instance, I wrote Dear Photograph because I wanted to talk to the photo. So I posted about around 7 of the photos, and then sent it out to friends. And you know what the internet can do once you put something online, it can eat it up. And within a week and a half, Mashable picked it up. And then actually a few weeks later, it hit the front page of Reddit, and that day it got 250,000 hits. So it's been quite the little roller coaster ride for me the past 5 months. I quit my job. I was working doing social media at Research in Motion, and that was in September. And then I moved out to LA for a little bit and met some cool people there. And I decided to come back home to Canada because Canada's where it's at.
I think Amber would agree with you there.
Yeah.
But what I love about Dear Photograph, and this actually, it's funny because it's been such a part of I'm a Tumblr user, so I see it in my dashboard, but part of my kind of daily routine that I forget that it's not really very old. I mean, you started, back in July of this year?
Yeah, no, it was May 24th of this year. Yeah, so we're coming up on 6 months in a few days, I guess, in about 5 days. So it's still very young, and it's steady, and it's doing great, and there's lots of really cool things to come.
There are a lot of Tumblr blogs that are themed. I follow a few of them. Cute Boys with Cats is one that comes to mind, where it's like, that's an easy one, a boy and a cat, get a lot of likes and reblogs. Dear Photograph is unique because there's a real nostalgic quality, because you look at the picture, and there's actually a picture on my computer. It's one of your early ones with you, I guess, and that's your mom out in your yard. That was one of the photos that you put up before you were starting to accept submissions. And the photograph itself, you say, oh, okay, I see what they did there. That's a photo from a long time ago. But you add a caption, that you missed the swing. The swing's no longer there for whatever reason. And a lot of people have been submitting photos that are about people that they've lost, or people that they loved in the past, or something that, is sort of no longer there in adulthood. And it really tugs at your heartstrings in a way that a lot of other blogs that have sort of a basic mission and an easy way to participate just don't.
Yeah, like the whole idea of it's been done since apparently the 1920s. Like there's some people that have been doing it forever, but I kind of took it and just branded it a little bit differently. And I also added the caption, which people usually say pictures worth 1,000 words. But with this, I feel like the picture is worth 1,000 words times 2, because there's 2 pictures plus the caption. We're times infinity right now. But so it just means so much, because you kind of get that. You feel that relationship with the person, and you feel that emotional connection. And then, but also you kind of try to figure out, okay, I wonder what they're doing now, or I wonder what else happened in that photo, or are they still alive? Have they passed on? What else has happened? So there's a lot of mystery, and there's a lot of emotional connectivity to it. So it's pretty cool, and it's been a crazy experience for me, because I get at least 20 to 30 submissions a day, and I only usually I do only post 1 a day. And when I get emails from people, if they're really crazy stories, I try to talk to them, and I even phoned a few of the people that I've got submissions from and heard their story, because I've grown up fairly well. I haven't, not much bad stuff has happened to me. So hearing these people's stories has kind of even almost changed my life a bit, which is kind of crazy, but I've kind of relived these people's memories that they've conquered through, I guess. And it's just been an unreal experience.
Now, is that sort of, are some of these stories that you're not able to add to the blog every day because that's not really your format, going to be part of your future Dear Photograph book?
Yeah, I signed the book deal with HarperCollins in July, and we're making a book. So the book's going to be like a coffee table book. It's going to be 200 pages. There's going to be around 70 to 80% brand new photos that no one's seen before, which I'm really excited to show everybody, because there's lots of really great photos. And then there's going to be obviously a few of the favorites from the blog. So it's going to be really cool to have a book out and to be able to go into a store and grab my book.
What's amazing too is that, I mean, the book deal signed in July. You said you started almost in June, towards the end of May. I mean, that is quick.
Yeah, usually I heard it's like more like, I know I talked to Frank Warren from Post Secret, and his, like, he grew it organically, and I've just been told that usually this doesn't happen often, of everything happening so quick. So I'm really excited to see where it goes and what's next. And there's lots of other things that I'm really excited to share with everybody in the next year or two. Who knows what's going to happen?
It's curious. I know I used to ask some of our guests on the show this question before, and I just want to ask you, in terms of what you're doing right now, how do you explain to people who maybe haven't seen the blog and aren't really familiar with what you're doing right now? You know, you quit this great job at Research in Motion, and now you're kind of doing your own thing on the web. So how do you explain to people kind of what you do? Because it's like, it's such a different position than I'm sure anyone could imagine.
Yeah, no, it's really weird because it's not like a regular job. I've been really lucky, and I'm very grateful for everything that's happened. But no, it's like, people are like, well, what do you do all day? I'm like, I sit and read through people's submissions and look at their memories and post them. And they're like, what? Like, that's a crazy thing to do. But no, like, what I do, I usually send emails every day and yeah, just look through the submissions. And it's a pretty cool job because I'm always on the internet trying to think of what I can not do next, but like what I can do to make Dear Photograph better, or like what connections I can make, or networking with people online. And I really like talking to the fans a lot, like on the Facebook page and everything, because like I used to be kind of one of those fans, I guess, and I know what it's like to have someone talk to you that's doing something kind of cool. So I don't know, it's just a great feeling overall to be able to be doing what I'm doing right now. And never, like, I've always thought, or I've always tried to do something cool on the internet. All my friends have always ridiculed me for being on Twitter and Facebook all the time, even when I was in high school, when no one thought it was a cool thing to do. But and now they're all envious of me, I guess, which is funny.
Yeah, because you think, wow, you know, it's a concept that seems so obvious. Well, that's not hard. You know, you just make sure that you line up the picture right. You mentioned that in your book you want to be able to expand on some of the pictures and the stories that you're just not able to add onto the blog each day. But then there'll be some of the blog favorites. And I have to imagine that, Chad, this one is on my computer. This picture of that Jonathan Stamp will be included. Now, I'm not sure if 120,571 notes is a record for Dear Photograph, but it's got to be up there. I don't think I've ever seen anything on Tumblr with that many reblogs and likes in the past before.
Yeah, that one's definitely the biggest Dear Photograph. I knew right away when I got the photo that like it hit me in the heart pretty good, and it's hard to make me cry when I've heard a lot of people do cry over the blog, which is funny, but no, that photo is just it's a great photo. And I've talked to Jonathan and they actually were part of, I was ABC Person of the Week back in the beginning of August, and Diane Sawyer's crew flew down and they interviewed her, and then they did the segment on me on one of the Friday nights as the Person of the Week, and I kind of got to learn more of the story there. And then I've been emailing Jonathan back and forth, and him and that's his son that submitted the photo, Jonathan, but his dad is the one who's in the photo. And
right, because he's in both photos, which is somewhat unusual.
Yeah, it's a really cool photo, and it's just crazy to see like his wife laughing and like he's so happy too, and then just seeing him standing there and looking down at the photo, and it's so sad, but it's a great photo, and I'm very happy that Jonathan submitted it.
It's amazing. So as far as when people can get their hands on the book, you said next year.
Yes.
And also, if people are submitting photos, is there one quality that you kind of look out for that they could keep in mind if they want to try to get featured on your blog?
Yeah, just like every photo is unique in its own way, and I love seeing every single submission. But just keep in mind, like, we want to have that really emotional connection and hit that heartstring, and make sure it's also lined up too, because I know I got a lot of OCD people that email me. They're like, make sure people line them up better. I'm like, oh, sorry, I can't help it, but it was a great photo. But yeah, it's and make sure there's good contrast. Like if you have a really old photo held up to like just the regular background now, it looks really cool if everything matches up properly. And also it has to be a good size quality, because if we want to keep on making books, then we want to make sure that they're going to be printable for the book or whatnot. So.
Well, Taylor, I just loved your photograph. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, because you're such a normal guy. You know, like, hey, I just decided to do something and it went crazy, and now I've got a book deal, and you know, I've got all sorts of other ideas. But such a simple concept, but it's really sort of a powerful one. There's something about a combination of the nostalgia and the description of why the photo, even something that seems I don't know, sort of inconspicuous and not interesting at all, is meaningful to somebody years later, or their family.
It's so crazy. Like, I can't believe that. Everything's just so surreal right now. It's nuts. Like, I'm just a regular 22-year-old kid from Kitchener, Ontario, and all this stuff has happened to me. Like, Time Magazine named me number 7 blog or website at 2011, and CBS named me number 1 the next day. And
oh my
like, it's nuts. Who would have thought, right?
Awesome.
But,
very
it's really
cool.
I'm very grateful for everything, and it's just nuts.
Well, it just goes to show you have a good idea, and that's, you know, and you want to persevere. Then a lot of people will like what you're doing. So congratulations, Taylor. I really can't wait to see the book. I will be dutifully following Dear Photograph on Tumblr, and hopefully a lot of other people who weren't familiar with the blog before they saw you on the show will start following it as well. It's definitely worth it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate having you guys on the show, and we'll be sure to send you 2 copies of the book when it comes out.
All right. Signed, Taylor.
Score. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll be watching out for what you do next.
All right. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
That's Taylor Jones, the founder of Dear Photograph at dearphotograph.com. Absolutely 120% worth your time. Amber, I don't know about you. I'm a weeper. I mean, I can cry pretty easily, and it has definitely made me cry more than once.
Well, I have to say that I don't really weep that easily, but I think it's probably the one site on the internet that is, for me, has sort of brought about the most emotions. It's just, I mean, photograph after photograph are just fantastic. So he's done a really, really wonderful job, and it's great to see. You know, that's what the internet is for, right? And it's amazing to be able to see something like that and see how successful he's been. And he's just, he's a great guy, and I know he'll probably do something cool again in the near future.
Yeah, book deal and just over a month.
Exciting.
Good work.
Not bad.
We have a bunch of other stuff to talk about on this episode of The Social Hour, as we always do. But quick reminder that we record live on Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, which is also 8 p.m. in Barcelona, 9 p.m. in Jerusalem, and 11 p.m. in Dubai, or 1900 UTC. Andrew had written us and said, I love the show. I try to catch it live, but you guys always talk about Pacific and Eastern time, because of course I'm in Pacific and Amber's in Eastern time. But what about all the other time zones in the world? And you know what, Andrew? You're totally right. So
He's
thanks
totally
for
right.
reminding us to remind you where you might be able to see it worldwide. I'll do my best to try to pick like cool cities every week.
Yeah, it's a really important point. And of course, our website is twit.tv/TSH, and you can email us at thesocialhour@twit.tv. So lots of ways to reach us, and of course, subscribe to the show. If you can't tune in live, you're able to watch it pretty much 24/7 after we finish recording. So thanks for watching.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're on demand. So if you can watch us live, great. It's fun. It's good to get your conversations and chat and get some interactivity. But if you can't watch us live, you can watch us whenever you want. That's cool too. Or you can listen. Audio feeds as well. If you like to drive, and you shouldn't be watching anything while you drive anyway.
Listening.
Exactly. Listen, please. All right, this episode of the show is brought to you by Ford, featuring Sync and My Ford Touch. We've talked about Ford in the past because we're so into the technology that they're putting in their cars these days. Sync is sort of the overall name for all of their in-car communications and entertainment connectivity system. This is all voice activated, that's the key, because when you're driving, you actually have to be driving. You can't be looking up and down and and playing with your iPad, or even really, you don't even really want to be changing the stereo channels too much. What if it's raining? What if there's traffic? You gotta be eyes on the road, hands on the wheel. So one of the cool things about Sync is Sync services. You get audible turn-by-turn directions wherever you want to go. Directional arrows are on screen, so you kind of have that interactivity while you're propelling forward. Sync services also gives you business searches, up to 40 million businesses, like telephone numbers, business information, directions. So if you know where you're going, you can get that stuff read back to you. Send to Sync feature uses Google Maps or MapQuest from your home or your office computer to plan a trip, which then you can load up in your car when you're done. You can save stuff online to sync traffic directions and your information systems account, and then you can use your voice commands in your vehicle to get those directions later. It's great. So if you do a little pre-planning, I mean, it's as if your car knows exactly what you want to do. And it doesn't really require anything on your part. You just sort of say, "Hey, car, tell me what my plan is."
Tell me where to eat,
You have to have a plan first. The car might have a different idea of what's fun than you do, but...
It's very cool, though. I mentioned before that I've driven around some of the Fords with the amazing technology that they have in them, and I did a 6-part web series on some of the technology. It was fun. One episode, I actually went on Twitter and asked people where we should go eat, and then used all of the navigation system within the Ford to get there. And it's amazing how they've just kind of kept up with the times, and they keep innovating and innovating and innovating.
Absolutely. Ford Sync, it is the way to go. And Ford is always they're working with developers with their API to create all sorts of different technological ways to stay connected and be safe while you're driving. So if you want to check out all the stuff that they've got going on, by the way, Ford Sync with My Ford Touch is available in the 2012 Ford Focus, with other models coming soon, and a lot more information at ford.com/technology. That's an easy one. Ford.com/technology. There's no special code or anything. They just have a really good, very thorough website letting you know all of the stuff that is available in cars that they're working on for the future. Really impressive stuff. So thanks so much to Ford for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour.
All right, Sarah. So lots of news over the past few days. This was a big one, and I know you've been following it. So Hunch was sold to eBay. And when I was thinking about Hunch, am I right in thinking that this was Katerina Fake involved in this?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
She's one of the founders of Hunch. She actually left Hunch a few months ago to start another venture. I don't believe that is public yet, but she's still a founding partner of Hunch, as is Chris Dixon and a few other folks. And it was big news this morning. I believe Mike Arrington broke it on his blog, but the official Hunch press release went out soon afterward. They have not talked about what the details of the sale are, although it's been reported to be maybe somewhere in the arena of $80 million.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
It sounds like what Hunch is, and if you're not familiar with Hunch, it's like a recommendation engine that has very integrated social qualities. Chad, I've got my Hunch that I'm logged into up on my computer now, and what Hunch likes to do is get to know you. So I've added in iOS as something that I'm interested in. So Hunch is saying, okay, you're interested in iOS. Let's start recommending stuff to you. For example, the Etsy iOS app. That's a good one. I'll go ahead and say I love this. Good one, Hunch. Tanzan, gaming tech, free app. Let's say I'm sort of like, well, it's okay. It's there's a little bit of a stumble upon quality. I mean, we're all getting pretty used to this, saying, yes, Hunch, this is sort of, you're in the right direction here, you're not in the right direction there. But then I can follow Amber and get a sense of the sorts of things that she likes via Hunch. So that's Hunch in a very basic nutshell. It sounds like what eBay wants to do is use the way that Hunch is recommending things to folks to beef up their own recommendation engine, which some might argue, and eBay already has that to some extent, but it certainly doesn't work this way, and it's certainly not as beautiful as Hunch. Hunch is a really nicely made site. So I don't know. Amber, does this seem like a match made in heaven to you?
It's interesting because I feel like I didn't hear that much about Hunch after there was a lot of buzz surrounding it when it first launched. And I believe that we had Katerina on the show maybe before it was the social hour, and Leo and I were doing it. And it seems like an interesting idea. I just feel like there's a little bit of saturation in the market as far as recommendations engines and review sites. And every time I look around, there's something new. And some of them are really good. And Hunch would, like you said, is well designed. I don't know. I guess it does make sense, but I think of $80 million and I'm thinking, wow, I didn't even know a lot of people used it, but that's my first reaction.
Well, that is some of the chatter online. People saying the same thing is, there's nothing wrong with Hunch, but yes, saturated market, and who's really using Hunch on a regular basis? And eBay might have the cash to buy something like this, but does this sale make sense? To me, I haven't used Hunch in a long time, and it's one of those unfortunate things where it's like I have no good reason except that there are only so many hours in the day. I mean, that's more and more that seems to be my excuse for not using services that I think are really cool. It's just because the way that our jobs go, you kind of have to pick and choose. But I think that if it helps eBay process more transactions, because if I'm looking for some sort of a used fancy dress, and then I end up, eBay ends up being able to use the Hunch engine to recommend other stuff to me that's related because it gets to know me, then that's good for eBay, certainly. So I can see
definitely.
Why they're interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. When I heard the price tag, I was a little bit shocked that it was that high because I think of it as a relatively new service, and it goes back to that point I think we've talked about before. You think of being sort of kind of in a bubble right now with some of these web services, particularly applications, and it just seems like a pretty high cost for that service. However, for the founders and people who created it, congratulations! Right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Good for them.
Good work, Hunch. Yeah, I mean, great team. It's I know Chris is going to be heading up. I think it's like a 50-person team over at eBay. So certainly, some of the Hunch staff will continue on to work on it. You never really know with acquisitions like this how long people will stay around.
Sure.
Because sometimes it's it all looks just fine and dandy on the surface, but it's a very different story internally. So we'll keep watch on the story and see how things change over the next few months. Meanwhile, in Google Plus land, what do you think about Google Plus adding trending topics, Amber?
Not a big surprise, Sarah. How do you feel about it? I thought, I read this and I thought, yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? That they would do something like that and just sort of, I always thought of Google Plus almost like not stealing, but borrowing the best ideas from some of the other social networks around, like the Twitter and Facebook, and mashing them all together. And then you have Google Plus. So not a big surprise. I think it's kind of neat, although it seems that it's only accessible through search. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm looking at my Google Plus stream, and this was very confusing to me because as I read some of the reports, I didn't read really in great detail. So I go to my Google Plus stream and I say, well, where's my trending topics? I'm just looking at, this is just where are they? They're hidden. It turns out you actually have to search for something. So let's say I searched for Amber Mac. So I'm not actually going to Amber Mac's profile. I'm just searching for, people mentioning her. Okay, so there are some people and pages, Google Posts, Sparks, best of, and this is her account. But now I've got these trends over the right-hand side. Here's what's weird about the trends. They're not necessarily related to Amber at all. They're just the trending topics on Google+, but I had to search for something specific for them to show up. Why do those help me in this case? Because I was looking for something specific already. I'm not getting it.
I guess they're trying to distract you. If you think you're searching for something, maybe you should search for something else.
It just seems like the trends should somehow link back to you. And maybe they do loosely, but I mean, I don't know how the Dow Jones Industrial Average ties in with Amber Mac in this case.
Clearly you don't know me well enough, Sarah.
Right. Are you a big San Diego Chargers fan? I can't imagine that you are. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. That is a little bizarre. Yeah, it's kind of funny how they ended up doing it like that. I think it would have made more sense, like you said, to be able to search and then maybe see some of the things that I talk about on a regular basis, like the social hour and Command N and other things. It would be neat to see that tied to a specific profile in terms of the most common topics from an individual. But yeah, who knows, Sarah? It's hard to figure out exactly what's going on over at Google Plus, but. Still a fan, I still love the service, and I love the engagement there more than anything.
Yeah, I like trending topics. At the same time, even though I always have my eye on trending topics on Twitter, I very, very rarely click into them because so many of them I know are sort of silly games, or I can tell that Christina Aguilera is trending because the American Music Awards were on last night. I don't really need to read those. It's just sort of interesting to see what's rising to the top. And I'm not sure how much engagement I'm going to give Google Plus's trending topics either, especially if they're buried in search. But maybe that's just their initial rollout.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think we've talked about this on the show before. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's good, right? In fact, I try to stay away from some of those things. Although I do, I know Justin Bieber has done really well, and he does some cool stuff. It's like he's always trending on Twitter, right? I think you're right. Eventually, you just sort of ignore some of those things because you do know they're happening. But it's neat to see Google Plus kind of experimenting and watching them roll out with some of these newish features, or maybe, like I said, borrowed features.
Yeah, indeed. Go Google Plus.
All right. So for our social tip this week, Sarah, I stumbled across this service. I have no idea how I found it. And I think I was initially attracted to the name of the service because it's called Post. And for some reason, I just like it. It just kind of stuck. And it took me a while to kind of figure out exactly how I would use this service. And the reason I put it in the category of social tip is that I think it's good for people who find Twitter a little bit overwhelming. They're following too many people, and they want to be able to sift through their timeline and all of the information that's out there through specific things like video, links, and photos. So I've signed up with my Twitter account, and they have a cute little thing here that says your Twitter timeline strip searched for specific things like videos, and then I can see just those specific type of content that has been posted within my timeline. So that's kind of interesting if I just want to see what videos, for example, are posted within my Twitter community. So a different way to search through it.
So these are all people that you follow who are sharing either links or videos or, I guess, audio files, really anything that's beyond just a 140-character tweet itself.
Exactly. Yeah. And I could do the same with just links. So links that people are sharing as well. And then photos. And so I think in some ways it almost makes the Twitter feed a little bit more dynamic, instead of depending on it, just quick little messages. It just adds all of this multimedia content within your stream. So kind of fun.
I like it too. I mean, it definitely, it creates more of a specific category for when you're in the mood to sort of sit down and maybe watch some videos. And you can dial it in a bit. I mean, I noticed that you're following Andy Carvin, who, of course, has been extremely vocal and instrumental in following a lot of the issues that are going on in the Middle East, particularly Egypt. So you could say strip search, I'm looking at your timeline as well, Amber Max timeline, strip search video with, and then we could add keywords like Egypt, for example. So then it's like you're not just looking at every video that's posted, you're actually looking at videos. Oh, so nothing in my timeline like that. Well, that's not true. There probably has to be a keyword that's actually in the tweet itself.
In the tweet,
so you have to kind of get good at it. I like this idea because I actually find that when people post videos in line in my Twitter feed, there's a lot of signal to noise issues going on where sometimes I'm just trying to get caught up on Twitter in general, and I don't really have time to click into all of that stuff because it's kind of one step removed from my basic goal. But later on in the day, I might have half an hour to go back and actually look at some of these videos that people posted because they were meaningful for whatever reason. I like this. This is cool.
Yeah, it's super, super simple, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I was attracted to it. It's a very basic tool. And I think in some ways that Twitter search functionality is a little bit dumb. Now, if you're someone who's managing social media for a company or a big brand out there, you can see how this would be useful too. And just being able to collect a bunch of information and target your searches in a different way than Twitter or other services allow you. So kind of interesting.
I like this. So postpost.com, we were looking at Amber's feed, but you sign in with your Twitter account and it can be your feed as well. And it's actually kind of interesting to see who's posting a lot more of the links and the videos versus who's sort of pontificating on life. Awesome stuff gets lost on Twitter. That's their tagline. So yeah, postpost.com. Really good find, Amber. I had not heard of this before.
Right. 1 point for me. Now, Sarah, I have to say, for our next link that we're going to talk about, which I think is our spotlight, this is right up my alley. I love that you picked this because it is simple again.
Yes,
and tiny.
Extremely simple and tiny because it's actually called Tiny Review. And coincidentally, there's no way anyone in chat would have known that Tiny Review was on our roster today, but people were talking about it earlier in the show. Hey, have you guys seen Tiny Review? This is an app. I actually pinged the developer because I wanted to make sure that they were ready to launch. I had gone to tinyreviewapp.com over the weekend, and it looked like it was in private beta, so I pinged them and said, oh, could I please get early access because I want to talk about it on the show, because I knew somebody else who had a beta version, and she said, no, it's actually live, so they had just needed to update their website. But onto the app. Chad, do you have a over-the-shoulder? Okay, so here's Tiny Review, and this is great. I mean, talk about simple. So Tiny Review has geolocated me in Petaluma, and that's really, really important. You have to be comfortable with geolocating yourself because now I see that all of the stuff around me, and let's go back up to the top. It starts at the locations that have been rated that are closest to me, and as you keep going down, stuff that gets farther away. So the nearest thing that's been located to me is Oliver's Market, it's actually 18 miles away because it's up in Rohnert Park. But somebody named Scott said the Oliver's Market is great because there is no better beer selection. So these are like reviews about a place, or product for a very specific reason, and you don't have that much room. It's almost like Twitter in that way, where you have to be creative about why you like something. The town of Katati, a must-try, good any time of year. That's kind of funny. In-N-Out Burger, the love of my life, says somebody in a Raiders shirt. And so I could go ahead and like this. I actually don't really like In-N-Out Burger, but for the purposes of this, I'll go ahead and like this. Sonoma Cheese Factory, sandwiches, sandwiches, sandwiches. I actually will like this for real because who doesn't like sandwiches? And you can go ahead and then add another review. If I was like, the Sonoma Cheese Factory indeed is awesome sauce.
So it's just I think it takes the pressure off having to write a bunch of content, right?
Exactly. And I think that, there's certain things I still have to configure if I wanted to send my Tiny Review to Facebook. I'll just go ahead and post without. But yeah, we are in the review market.
Yes.
If you even want to talk about something like Hunch, where you're trying to get recommendations for things that you might like, or something like Oink, where you're reviewing specific things within restaurants and items on menus, or a dress that you like or a pair of shoes. It is very, very hot right now, and Tiny Review is certainly not the first app to want to give people recommendations about cool places, but I like how it is stripped down almost everything except the most basic of information, which ends up being more helpful in many cases.
Yeah, it's just it's just easy for people, I think, like us, Sarah, who love to kind of skim through a bunch of information throughout the day, right? So it's just really, really simple to kind of browse through. And there are so many services like this out there. Like just a few minutes ago, I heard my iPad go off because Oink was oinking because I guess someone else had subscribed or something. So I'm inundated with all of these review sites right now. I don't know which one's going to end up winning, Sarah, but we're going to have to watch the race as it ensues.
They can't all win. That's the problem, is that there are so many good services, whether they're apps or they're online or they're pulling from Twitter's API and post, and I don't know how they'll all win. E. Cardo Shinsky asks in chat, will it work in my city? Well, here's the deal, is that, again, it's geolocated. So in somewhere like Petaluma, where I am right now, Petaluma has all sorts of stuff to review, but it never seems to catch on in a smaller town as much as it does in a city. It's all about who has reviewed things that are nearby where you have geolocated yourself. So if there isn't anything nearby, you could be the first person to review your favorite diner, for example. But yeah, it'll technically work anywhere as long as people are participating. So that's Tiny Review. TinyReviewApp.com is the website, and it's an iOS app in the iTunes App Store.
Very cool. All right, Sarah. So I think coming up next, I know we have an ad first. We're going to get to the feedback. And we had some really wonderful feedback this week, emails and one potentially dangerous video.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, we had a lot of good feedback. So we'll get to that in just a second. But first, we want to thank Netflix for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. Okay, Netflix.com/twit. Why do you need to know that URL? I'll say it again. Netflix.com/twit. Because it's the best way to stream movies, TV shows, TV series, a lot of new releases, old classics, everything in between, through a variety of devices. Your Roku box, your Apple TV, your iPad, your computer, your Xbox 360, your PS3. I mean, there are so many ways to watch Netflix content, and in this day and age, streaming is kind of where it's at. It's where everything's going. One movie, it's actually a documentary that is new to Netflix instant streaming, is Page One, which is the documentary about the New York Times, and it is really, really, really good. I mean, it gives you a sense of... if you haven't watched it already, I really recommend it. And it's on streaming now. It's a new edition. What goes on behind the scenes, what is arguably one of the world's most successful, famous papers, and how things are changing with the reporters that have worked there for many years versus reporters who are used to, the blogging way of life. It's just really, really good documentary. Highly recommended. And kind of dramatic all at the same time. So that's just an example of what Netflix provides. A lot of different kinds of content depending on what your mood is in. Of course, they've got their DVD service as well. But if you go to netflix.com/twit, you get 30 days free. So if you're not already a subscriber, you can watch a bunch of content. I mean, there's no limit. There's no cap on all the stuff that you can watch in those first 30 days. You get a sense for how Netflix works. Now, if you're already a member, and chances are, if you're a TWiT viewer/listener, you are, tell a friend. I mean, we're coming up to the holidays. This is kind of a great gift where you don't actually have to do anything, but a friend might say, awesome, thank you so much for spreading the word. Now I get a lot of content to watch free, like Page One, the documentary. So thanks to Netflix.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, you gotta watch it. It's really good. Really good documentary. So thanks to Netflix for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour.
All right. So lots of feedback. Let's start with this email. Hi, Sarah and Amber. I really enjoy your show, and I'm learning a lot about social apps and networking. I like hearing about your travels around the world and using social media. This May, my family and I are traveling to London. I have added the Trippy app and other travel social apps to my iPhone 4. What is the best way to use these apps without running up a huge overseas bill from your cell phone carrier here in the U.S.? The flat that we are staying at does have Wi-Fi. Does that help? Do you have some tricks you can use when you are traveling out of the country? Thank you for your help. Duncan McPherson from Orlando, Florida. I guess I'll just jump in and say that since I am Canadian, Canadians know as soon as you leave the country, you need to turn off your phone immediately because roaming charges outside of the country are so extravagant. So my advice would be pretty simple, and I think that Duncan's kind of figured out, is to depend on the Wi-Fi within the flat that you're staying if you need to use some of those apps. Sarah, you do a lot of travel. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. This is something that I've run into quite a bit going over to Europe in the past, and it's actually going to become a real issue because in the last year, the last time I was in Europe was almost about a year ago, and I have AT&T as a carrier, and what I would do is pay it's like $100 for 100 megabytes, or I think somewhere roughly around there, which goes really quick. But that is a roaming plan that you pay for ahead of time, because if you just go with international roaming charges, you're going to come back to a bill that will make you cry for many nights. But what I do sometimes is, even with something like that, and of course it depends on what your originating country is and what kind of cell phone plan you have. Even with that, what I would do is just turn off data completely. So if I could connect to a Wi-Fi network, then that's when I would use my phone. You try to load up maps and things like that as much as you can beforehand. And if you can rely on Wi-Fi, then that's really your best bet, because you won't have to roam at all. I'm now on a CDMA network because I've switched over to Verizon because it's better connection where I live in San Francisco, but I'm actually somewhat screwed because I have an iPhone 4, so it's not a dual band type of a thing. So I don't even know what I'm going to do this year. I may not be able to use data at all. We'll see. But yeah, I think Duncan's best bet is depend on Wi-Fi as much as possible, but definitely look into what kind of roaming plans you can buy ahead of time, so that if you really want to upload a picture or you really have to access something online and you haven't, cached it or downloaded it or have it on hand, then you're not stuck when you're in a jam or you're lost or there's an emergency.
Yeah, exactly. So good advice. And Sarah, if you want to do the next email, this one is from Sean. And I don't know, it's not that it's funny, but I like one of the lines in it.
Yeah, I know it's fun. I know it's fun. This Sean says, guys, when you were recommending how people can use social media for musicians, you forgot who I consider is the best example of using social media, Amanda frickin' Palmer. I knew it. She uses Twitter, she uses Flickr to do things like crowdsource tours, arrange things like crash spaces, set dressings, ride between towns, design t-shirts and hoodies, announce projects, document tours. She has an advantage that she was previously in a successful band called Dresden Dolls, but she has successfully managed her solo career all on her own. Sean, very good point. I actually was not familiar with Amanda Palmer until she became sort of a social media fixture, and I got to know her because I just didn't happen to be familiar with her previous band. And I know her as someone who people are really rabid fans of, in part because she makes it so easy to follow everything that she's doing online and is really interactive and is very much one of the people it's a two-way conversation with her in every way, and people really, really like that. And I think she's also just a very forthcoming person, personality-wise in general, and that works really well online, especially for a musician who wants people to stay interested.
Very cool. I hadn't heard of her before, so I'm going to have to check her out. Now, Sarah, this email is from Heather Marsh, and this is amazing. I had never heard of some of the sites that she's sharing. She says, Amber and Sarah, the Department of Defense and the President recognize November as the month of the military family. Before the month is over, I think it would be great if your show could feature some social spaces and mobile apps that were created specifically with military families in mind. One new and fun initiative was designed by Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit behind Sesame Street, called Military Families Near and Far, which features a website, a safe family fun space for kids and family members to connect and communicate, and a new mobile app called Feel Electric, currently featured on iTunes. I'm sure you know already, but we are hopefully getting ready to have a big surge of service members coming home from deployment, and we want to ensure they and their families have access to the right resources and the right time. So thank you for sharing this. Familiesnearandfar.org is the site she is sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. This is we're looking at one of the pages at Military Families Near and Far, which is at familiesnearandfar.org, and this has, for anybody who has kids knows, Sesame Street branding, kids will automatically be interested in this, but this is actually a page that's resources for grown-ups, and it's not just for kids, it's for whole families, and they've really done a lot of really great work with the help of favorite little Muppets like Elmo, explaining to kids some of the tougher conversations that families have to have about why maybe a parent isn't around, or is sick or injured, or just trying to get back into the swing of things when a parent or even both parents come back from deployment. And these are tough issues, and this is stuff that more and more families have to deal with all of the time, certainly worldwide, although this is focused on the U.S. military, but it's a great idea. And if you navigate around the site quite a bit, you see that they really leave no stone unturned. It's even if you're not a military family yourself, you probably know one, and the odds are that they might not have heard about this. And there are a lot of videos. There's interactive stuff for kids to create art that they can send abroad to a parent and stuff like that. I mean, it's a really, really great resource. So thank you to Heather for letting us know about it.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm glad we got it in before November ended.
Amazing. Now, if you have a link or any feedback that you want to share with us, all you have to do is write us at the social hour at twit.tv. You can also leave us a voicemail at 2626-SOCIAL, or record a video safely, upload it, and send it to us, and keep it to 30 seconds or less.
Absolutely. Want to thank Audible.com. They're our third sponsor of the show. Before we get to Amber's Ratifad, just want to quickly tell you about why Audible is so awesome. Well, okay. They have 100,000, even more than that actually, audio book titles. So, I mean, if you think about it, There's probably any book you can think of is in Audible's library. I mean, they have a really, really, really extensive library. And this is new releases. These are books written, autobiographies written by celebrities where they read the books themselves, which is really a lot of fun, especially if you follow somebody specifically, because you like their humor, you like their voice. So yeah, that's in the Read by Author section. There are originals and exclusive audiobooks that you can't find anywhere else. They do a really good job of categorizing their audiobooks, so you're not overwhelmed. You're not just sifting through 100,000 titles, because that could be overwhelming. Bestsellers as well. Steve Jobs' book, I don't see it going out of that #1 bestseller spot anytime soon, but you have a lot of other options. V is for Vengeance, The Litigators, Kill Alex Cross, The Hunger Games. I mean, a lot of these books I've heard of. Some of them I haven't. And if you are, it's almost like when we say, listen to our podcast if you're driving or you otherwise have to do something else visually. Audiobooks work really well that way too. When I'm cooking, sometimes I have an audiobook on if I want to get through a couple of chapters, because I can listen, but I have to be busy doing other things. I have a long commute. Audible comes in really handy for that. Or at the gym where, if I'm running on the treadmill, I can't really be looking at anything, but I can certainly listen and kind of get transported off to another world. So I can forget how much my knees hurt. audiblepodcast.com/social hour is a special URL so that you can get a free audiobook of your choice. And imagine, with 100,000 titles to choose from, there's definitely a book in there that you've wanted to read for a long time, but for whatever reason, you never really got around to, because sometimes reading just takes a lot of time and you're tired at the end of the day. Give the audio experience a try. A lot of times you'll find that you can get through books a lot easier and you really enjoy it more because it helps your imagination work in different ways. Again, that's audiblepodcast.com/social hour for your free audiobook of your choice. Get it now.
All right, Sarah. So rad or fad. This is going to be a short one because some people may have already heard of the activity tab in Twitter. Mm-hmm. I noticed this on shinyshiny.tv. I guess they kind of rolled this out over the course of the past few weeks. They first announced it at the end of the summer. I had never viewed the activity tab on Twitter before. I didn't even know it really existed. For some reason, I didn't pay attention to it. So I decided to just take a pop over to Twitter in my browser and check out the activity tab. And, it's pretty straightforward. It's very similar to your news feed, really, in Facebook. So being able to watch not just what people are tweeting, but who they're following, who they're retweeting. And once I started to dive into here, it was kind of a mess because I was kind of stuck in here for a while. And I don't know. What do you think, Sarah? Is this kind of a cool thing that people would use? I sort of like it.
Yeah, I like it too. If you take my screen, I'll go into my activity area. Most of you are familiar with this, but it gives me a sense of what my friends are favoriting, who my friends are following. You do not get information on who people are unfollowing, which appears to be, depending on who you are, some people want that information. I really don't, because it makes me feel negative, or maybe it would hurt my feelings. I don't know. But it's interesting, and you can get a sense of what people are doing on Twitter besides just reading the people that they're already following. One thing that I have an issue with is that I feel I favorite a lot of tweets for a lot of reasons. Sometimes because I think they're awesome tweets, and I want just to favorite them because they were funny or they were profound. But sometimes Amber would share a link that I just don't have time to read, so I favorite it because I use it like a bookmark. Well, that's fine too. I mean, there's no right or wrong way really to favorite things, but with this activity tab, you can tell that Twitter is really putting the emphasis on if you favorite something, it's because you're really trying to showcase it. There's something very special about it, and sometimes I don't know until I go back later whether it was, worthy of a retweet or I thought it was even relevant to me. So I worry that I'm giving some of my friends the wrong idea because they're like, Sarah just favorited like my last 4 tweets. Okay. But sometimes it's just because I want to make sure that I don't lose the link, but it's a bookmark type situation. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I think it is kind of a rad feature, and I think it's also good for people to look through it and realize that people are aware when you follow other people, other people you maybe shouldn't be following. That is public information, and like Sarah said, if you favorite something, all of that is there for people to be able to browse through. And I don't think we think about Twitter like that. So just take a peek at your activity tab, no matter how you use Twitter, and get a sense of kind of what's in your stream and what stuff's happening in the background. Maybe you didn't realize was public at first. So I think it's pretty rad as long as you use it wisely.
I agree. I think it's a rad feature. You just have to kind of know what people are insinuating from some of your favorites or some of the people that you follow. Can't really follow. I mean, this is all stuff that it's information that it was easy enough to get otherwise, whether it was like through a third-party app or I could click on everyone that Amber's following and look through the list and see it all that way. But this just makes things easier. So information is good, but yeah, definitely keep in mind what people know about you as you're favoriting and following. We mentioned that there was a video, and we mentioned a little bit about rad or fads from the past. And Dean actually sent us a video because he wants some updates.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Amber. This is Dean. I'm on my daily 1-hour commute in and out of Boston.
Why do they keep doing this?
This is where I listen to the social hour, so I thought it would be appropriate to give you the video feedback in the same environment that I listen to you guys.
Stop looking down.
I like the Rad or Fad segment of the show. It'd be nice to know how these services do in the social space. Are they success stories? Are they failures? Does the fad rating turn into a rad product, or vice versa? Keep up the great work on the social hour, and I look forward to catching up with you guys every week.
Thank you, Dean, but please stop sending us videos like this.
Yeah, you have to, if you're driving, maybe just pull over. Or at least, like, you shouldn't be shooting a video when you're driving at all. But if you, for some reason, find yourself, like, if you had to do it, just don't look down.
Just don't look down.
It makes me so nervous.
We'll be fine with it. We can look at the bottom of your chin. Not a problem.
But thank you for him for sending that. It was it's great to get that feedback, and I think a really great point. And we'll try to keep an eye on some of the rad or fads and do an update every few episodes or so.
Absolutely. I went back and thought, okay, well, let's just for kicks. What was the first rad or fad that we covered? And I realized it was because I had to go back to episode 4 because we didn't actually have a rad or fad segment until about then. I think we just hadn't called it that yet. But I originally called it Fly or Fade. And Amber said, that's good. What about rad or fad? I said, yeah, that's better. But our first rad or fad was actually Hashable, which is at hashable.com. And that this is... It's always been a service that seemed cool, but I never could really figure out that well. Takes hashtags and helps organize them based on who you are connected to on Twitter. And for example, if there are, how do I explain this? See, I have a hard time explaining it, and that's why I have a hard time saying that something's rad and keeping up with it. If I was checked in somewhere on Foursquare and Amber was too, and I tweeted that out, it would say, at Sonoma Sandwich Company with Amber Mac. Hashable knows that with is a common term, so that might go into my Hashable timeline type of a thing. Anyway, we don't have to talk about Hashable all over again. It was just, that is a good point that Dean makes, because ever since episode 4, which was many months ago, we haven't talked about Hashable again, and haven't really thought about it either. So I don't know if that means it's good for the rad factor, but it is good to revisit some of this stuff.
Yes, and we'll make an effort to kind of do that now and again, as long as people don't drive and videotape themselves.
Yes.
That's our deal.
That's all we ask of you. Otherwise, keep those videos coming. Just be safe. Be safe, Dean. We want you to get to your destination in one piece. All right, Amber, I think we've come to the end of our hour. That is it. Good show.
Yeah, that was a fun show, Sarah. And of course, people can check out all of the links online that we mentioned and get all of our show notes or subscribe and follow along with what we do until the next show next week.
That's right. Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific if you want to watch us live. Otherwise, we're on demand always. We won't go anywhere at twit.tv/TSH. You can also find us on iTunes. And, if you like the show, give us a good review, will you? We always like to see those, too. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Erin MacArthur. See you next week.
We'll see you next week on The Social Hour. Bye, everybody.